How do you get gigs? Should you play music from streaming services or buy that music when you get to those gigs? And should you be playing it on standalone DJ gear, or is a controller and laptop fine? These are just some of the questions that we answered in this edition of the Digital DJ Tips School podcast, recorded in front of an audience of our students who also fund this podcast. So thank you very much to our students for making this possible. It was fun, as always, lots of interaction. I hope you enjoy it as well. So let's get started on this month's Digital DJ Tips, Your Questions podcast. So our first question is from Seda, who says, do you have any information on how to start a DJ podcast on Spotify? And Seda goes on, I have used my recent radio shows with conversation, but they were taken down due to copyright issues. I heard of something called the Anchor app, which could help you, but didn't get a chance to look at it. If you have any info to share, that would be great. Well, as a DJ school, which has had a podcast for many years now, I definitely do have info to share. And I'm going to break your question down into three areas here, Seda. So to start with, having a podcast as a DJ can be a great thing if you've got something you want to say, of course. If you're just someone who thinks, no, I can't think of anything worse, then maybe not. Funny, here at Digital DJ Tips, I'm the one who's quite happy to talk until everyone's gone home about anything to do with DJing to anyone at any time. Steve, on the other hand, is much less happy doing that, and Steve will lose sleep for days building up to any time I've asked him to come on and do something similar. So we're all different, right? But if it is something that you think could be in your mix, if you've got stuff you want to talk about, if there's a local scene you're passionate about, if there's a music style you're passionate about, whatever, a podcast can be a good way of sharing it. Now, there are grey areas here around copyright, which is what you found, Seda, because I'm imagining Spotify is a little bit cautious about that because they're a music platform and they want people to be using their music on their platform. Now, they used to have tools that would let you kind of build your own podcast within their ecosystem, and that could be what they've turned Anchor into. Anchor used to be a standalone podcast platform and they bought it and folded it in. They used to have tools which would let you do that. So I don't know if they still run them. They certainly did. I remember when they launched them a couple of years back. So the idea was you used the Spotify music and you slotted in the talky bits, if you like. So you might want to look into that. I do have no experience of that. However, when it comes to copyright stuff, it is a little bit of a grey area, and a lot of people do kind of get away with having radio shows if they run their podcast in the old-fashioned way. Now, I can't promise this will work. The things that generally work are when podcasters will use like 20 seconds or 30 seconds of audio and then go back, like literally of music, and then go back to them talking about it. So I listen to some music podcasts where they have people on talking about, for instance, their favourite album, and they might play two or three tracks from the album, but only like 30 seconds of them, and the rest of it is talking. They seem to be tolerated more out there. But anyway, my advice to you would be to think beyond Spotify when it comes to running a podcast, because Spotify is only one platform. So the classic way of running a podcast is to use a hosting service which will take your audio and will then put it via the technology behind it. It's called RSS, but you don't really need to know that. You go through their interface and you upload your audio and you upload your artwork and you upload your show notes and your links and all that stuff that you normally see on podcasts. And then it will push it out to the platforms you choose: Spotify, Apple Music, Overcast, and all the other smaller ones. And this is really the way to go, because you don't, in my view, want to be locked into Spotify. In my view, it's probably better to do it the old-fashioned way, if you like, and make sure that, for instance, at least Apple Music gets it. Now, it could be that Spotify lets you push out from their platform. I'm not sure. But my strong instinct would be to go with a more classic platform. You might have to pay for it. So here at Digital DJ Tips, we use a platform called Simplecast. It's just one of many, but they'll charge you $10, $15 for the basic package a month. But you do get this kind of, it's not tied to any particular name, if you like. And you might just find it's a little bit more tolerant of using music, but I can't promise that. So look into that. And when it comes to video podcasting, I think you're better off just doing a video version. Like, for instance, the podcast that you're listening to or watching now is a dual cast. It's a video podcast if you're on YouTube watching it, and it's a standard podcast if you are listening to it on Apple Music or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And so the best way of doing that, I think, is just to do a very simple video recording and upload it to YouTube. Honestly, I think YouTube is the best platform for that. And finally, if you do want to have a podcast which is all music with just you talking, I'd say maybe take a look at Mixcloud. Maybe you can do that on Mixcloud because that's where most radio shows like that are hosted. Again, you'll pay for it, but it means you won't have any copyright issues. So there you go, a little bit of advice about running a podcast. I'd love to know how you get on there. So do come and let us know, Seda. That'd be something that I'd definitely be interested to hear how it goes. Our next question is from Graham, and Graham has got a technical question. Graham is a tractor user, and Graham is finding that his controller continually cuts all sound without any reason. Graham says, all my tracks have been checked for bugs, etc. It seems to happen 1 hour into a set, and it's even down to a complete shutdown for no reason when I'm playing live, and it's obviously very annoying. The only way I found to rectify it is to completely shut down and restart. So look, it can be very, very annoying when your software does this to you. It is an occupational hazard when you're DJing with DJ software and laptops rather than with standalone controllers, or they call them controllers kind of interchangeably nowadays, but standalone systems that don't require you to have a laptop running software with you because they're powered internally and you plug a USB or however you get the music into it. And the truth is, it could be one of many things, Graham, but it is solvable and it is not the fault of the software. In other words, it is something which not every user of this software experiences 1 hour into a set, right? So it is something you can get to the bottom of. There are very classic things that you can look into to isolate what could be causing it, or to stop it at source, if you like. I mean, if you are connected to Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, if you have power features on your laptop, you can set them to performance mode rather than power saving mode. It could be something like that. There's a whole list of things that you could look to see if it's anything obvious. There is an article on the Digital DJ Tips website that if you go to digitaldjtips.com and type laptop optimization, or just the word optimization with an S, not a Z, us being Brits, into the search bar, it will come up with that article. And I would say go through all of those things first. And if you can't find any help there, there's a really useful Reddit for Tractor. And I would say go and ask there, because there's some really intelligent and generous people with their time who, if you describe the problem in more detail, or in all the detail they ask for, might help you get to the bottom of it. But the good news is it is solvable, Graham. It isn't something you will solve by going to Serato or Recordbox or whatever. It is something that you can fix. And so don't lose heart. Try those things first. Try the optimization ideas that are in our article. And if they don't work, head to that Tractor Reddit. And again, please do let me know how you get on. I do hope that you solve it. As I say, nothing worse than being at a gig and being let down by your software. So I totally get what you're talking about there. So now I'm going to move on to a question from Sam, who is talking about the ease with which I guess it's a he, but it could be a she, the ease with which they scratch on their controller. Because Sam says this, and it's a great thing to say. So thank you, Sam. I've not heard it before, but I totally get it. Sam says, I'm totally in love with this community. Well, that's great. Thank you. I have a DDJ Rev 1 controller, and I love the responsiveness of my jog wheels. However, when I sit down and practice scratching, I get better hand control than when I'm standing up. Is that normal? My scratches feel tighter. And the tough thing is, I'm not used to different heights as I practice before bed, and this is the easiest way to do it. In other words, the easiest way to do it is sat down, I guess. Any thoughts? Yes, I have got thoughts, and they're coming from a completely left field area. So listen on, Sam, because maybe this is going to help you. So a lot of regulars on this podcast will know that my second passion, other than DJing, is running. I'm an avid runner, and I'm very, very curious as to what makes people better runners. And one of the things that makes people better runners is mastering relaxation, because you cannot run properly if you are tense. Down to the point where in the Kenyan and the Ethiopian camps, where hundreds of hopeful young runners every season turn up for the coaches to choose the one or two they're going to take further and maybe give endurance running careers to, one of the things they look for, and listen to this, is whether when they're testing the runners on the tracks, their bottom lip is loose. In other words, their bottom lip is just bouncing around as they run. Why? Because it's impossible to not be relaxed with a loose bottom lip. That is the thing that tells the coach that that person has got every muscle in their body relaxed apart from the ones they need for running. And in running, it turns out that that allows you to perform best. And mastering the art of relaxing every part of your body that is not needed for what you're doing is extremely hard. And the mad thing is, and I know this because Steve, who is our scratch tutor, and Steve, who has worked on our scratch courses with DJ Jazzy Jeff, DJ Angelo, and all the other great scratch tutors we've worked with over the years, says exactly the same thing. Relaxing when you're scratching is the hardest thing to do. When you're scratching, it can be a little bit like, you know, when you watch Bruce Springsteen with his Fender Telecaster on and his arms locked at right angles and it's going up and down, hammering out those chords. If your arm is in any way like that, tense, you will find that it's very hard to get the nuances of scratching on a DJ controller right. It really is important to relax everything, your shoulders. The scratch action comes from the front of your arm, not from any further up. And everything else about your body, and just use the muscles that are needed to do the minute things that you need to do to master scratching, right? And here's the thing. When you're sat down, I'm going to guess, Sam, that you're finding that relaxation much, much easier. And when you're stood up, immediately something is tense in your body, probably your arm and your shoulder and your upper arm. And that means that you're finding it harder to get that nuance that you're used to having when you're sat down. So I would say it's about relaxation. It's about standing there and saying, what is tense that is not normally tense when I am sat down and doing this? And if you do that, then I think you'll quite quickly figure out what it is, and you'll quite quickly get back to having that nuance in your scratching. And so look for that, look for tense muscles, because I think I'm sure that's where the issue is going to be. And you've already spotted it, which is why you're not having the issue when you're sat down. What a great question, by the way, Sam. I absolutely love that one. And so it ties everything together. It ties playing guitar as well. As a guitarist, I know exactly the same thing. If I sit down in my favorite chair with the cutout on my guitar's neck, or rather on my guitar's body, sat on I'm a left-handed guitarist, so my guitar sits on my left leg when I'm sat down, and I have my right hand out on the neck. If I sit like that, I'm really relaxed and I can really get into playing it. If I put the strap on and stand up, I suddenly go into Bruce Springsteen mode and everything tenses up, and I have to remind myself not to do it. So not only guitars and running, but also scratching, they all require relaxation in order to get down to the finicky nuances of doing it properly. So there you go. I told you it was going to be a left field answer, Sam, but I hope that helped you. John asks, I've been a hobby DJ for a little over a year, and I'm interested in making the leap out of the bedroom and into public. So well done, John. John says, I'm a little older, but I'm positioning myself as a daytime / early evening DJ for things like day raves, brunches and beats, coffee shops, corporate and charity events, and so on. So firstly, well done, John. You're doing it all right. John says, I've built a professional website with all my info and services and rates, etc. It's ready to go. However, I can't seem to hit go live. What's holding me back? I know I'm not going to be drowning in clients right away, if ever, but the reality of it all has me dealing with a big case of the yips. Can you give me a little nudge? Thank you for all your insights and hard work. Okay, so this is a fantastic question, and this is going to be going out for everyone who is trying to get gigs. And in fact, I'm probably going to tie this in with another one. I'm going to refer another question I've got later on back to this. So when we get to that question, I'll mention this. So John, a couple of things here. So firstly, as I said, you're doing it all right. There is no point as an older DJ saying, I'm going to be playing for 18-year-olds, because 18-year-olds don't want you playing for them. The people who want you playing for them are your people, right? And where are they? They're at the day raves, they're at the brunch and beats, they're at the coffee shops, they're at the corporates, the charity events. Indeed, they're the people who are booking event DJs. So you've got all of that right, John. So well done first. But you've now kind of touched on, I think, the thing that's holding you back from pressing go, because you've kind of come at this backwards. And I want you to take this in the nicest possible way and in the most, I'm being as constructive as I can here. The thing is, as they say, no plan for war survives contact with the enemy, right? As soon as you start doing anything, all your best laid plans are going to need readjusting straight away. And you've made an awful lot of plans here, John. You have built a website, you've got your info, you've got your services, you've got your rates, you've got all the other stuff on there. But how do you know whether that info is what people want? How do you know whether people even want those services? How do you know whether those rates are realistic or not? The answer is you've got no concept, because you haven't got in touch with your public. They're not your enemy, of course, they're your public. But you haven't done anything yet, and that's what's holding you back. You know that. You're not daft, right? You know that. You know that everything on there is probably going to need rewriting. And so you've got hesitance because of that. In a way, the best way of doing this thing is just to forget the website, forget the rates, forget the services, forget all that stuff. Just get yourself a paid event. It might not be paid very much. It might be a charity event where you're just asking for expenses, or you might be helping a family member out, or doing something for work and charging, half your normal rate. You could do what I call the $1 close, which is a great way to get your first gig. You find somewhere where there's maybe 2 or 3 chances to DJ, and you say, look, I'll level up with you. I'm good, but this is early doors for me. I haven't done an awful lot of gigs, and I wouldn't expect you to pay me my full rate until you know I'm worth it. So here's what we're going to do. I'd like you to book me for the next 2 events, the next 2 charity gigs, or corporate gigs, or whatever it is. And my normal rate is insert rate here, $500 or whatever. But I'll do the first one for you for $1 or for expenses, right? I just want you to see it. I want you to know I'm a risk worth taking. And then if you like what you see, the next one is going to be at my normal rate. How does that sound? So they're going to do the calculations and say, I've just got this dude for half price, $250 per gig. They're going to say, that sounds good. And you're going to turn up and do a fantastic job of it. And then you're going to get $500 next time. What's to lose, right? So that's a good way of doing this while still remaining professional and still valuing what you do or putting worth on what you do. But I think what's holding you back, John, is exactly what I said. You've done all the stuff that you would normally do after playing 4 or 5 events when you suddenly realize. I'll give you an example from the very early days of digital DJ tips. Now, we're 16 years old. On Tuesday just gone, I put the first post live on Digital DJ Tips 16 years ago. And I didn't know what it would turn into. It turned a few corners along the way. I wanted to have a website talking about modern DJ gear, because DJing had changed. I'd taken a break of about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years from DJing. And it had all changed in the meantime. Like, controllers had arrived. And they weren't there. Well, they were there, but they weren't very good when I kind of like took a break. And so I'm like, no one understands controllers, but I do. And no one understands the way DJing used to be done, but I do, because I did it for 20 years. Why don't I do a website about DJ controllers? But no one came and visited that website for a long time. I was posting content, nothing happened, until I put a post up saying the 5 best entry-level DJ controllers today. And that post went, whoa. And I went, what people want is reviews of DJ controllers, but what I want to do is teach them DJing. So I'll tell you what, I'll give them what I want, and then I'll pivot them onto what I know they need. And guess what? Digital DJ Tips was born, and that basic formula hasn't changed. But I didn't know it when I started. And I think you don't know now what you're going to end up doing, John. You might end up doing day raves. You might end up doing brunches and beats. You might end up being a coffee shop DJ or a corporate DJ. You might get the bug with wedding DJing, and that's you. And you know that website's going to have to change, right? So I think that's what's holding you back. So my advice to you, the nudge that you've asked for, is get some paid work. Whatever they're paying you, or whatever the rates, whatever the reason for it, Get yourself out there, play half a dozen events, and you will soon figure out what you want to be and what the market wants. And then look, your website isn't final. You can change it again and again and again and again. And so this is something that you just need to do by getting into contact with your public and actually doing the DJing, right? Once you start to do the DJing, everything will fall into place. I can tell you that for certain. So please get out there and stop worrying. There's your push. There's your nudge, John. And I hope that was helpful for you. Jack says, I want to get your opinion on upgrades. And this is a controller versus standalone question. Jack says, I need a new laptop and I need a new controller, but the debate is, do I buy a laptop and do I buy a really good controller? Jack's talking about the DDJ Flex 10. Or do I save some money by buying a standalone unit? And Jack names the XDJ RX3, which will cost me $500 more, but I won't need to buy the computer. What should I do? So a couple of thoughts on that, Jack. The first thing you should do is decide whether you want to DJ with a laptop or not, because that really, the $500 here or there over the lifetime of this system, let's say you're a good boy and you keep it for 7 years and you don't upgrade every 6 months, over the lifetime, $500 is neither here nor there, right? So the question really is, do I want to DJ with a laptop or do I want to DJ without a laptop? And there's pros and cons for both. So DJing without a laptop, and you name quite an old DJ system there, the RX3, is far more limited than DJing with a laptop. There's far fewer things you can do on a standalone unit. Even the best ones now, you can do less stuff on them than you can with a laptop and a controller. But at the same time, you need to ask yourself, what do I really want to do? Because DJing, frankly, hasn't changed an awful lot for most DJs for a long time. If what you want to do is perfectly possible on a standalone unit with all the features and functions it has, then that's going to be solid, it's going to be reliable, it will always turn on when you press the on button, it will never need updates, it will never need anything changing if you don't choose to change it. It will just work for that 7-year period. If you would actually rather have the newer features and risk the things that can go wrong, like you're going to need to update software, it could cause issues, drivers might go out of date and need finding and changing. In the end, that laptop might not, or rather the software you're running on that laptop might no longer support the controller. And even worse, the software that you need to run might not even support the laptop after a while, because even laptops go out of date in the end. Look, all these things mean that there is more impermanence with a software setup. But that said, you get so many more features. You get all the stuff DJs are talking about in DJ schools and on DJ forums and on blogs like ours. You get them when they arrive, because laptops can be given the new stuff immediately, right? Stems are old news. Real-time stems, instant acapellas and stuff, they're old news on laptops. They've been around for years now. They're only just starting to arrive on the standalone units, and frankly, they're not very good. Whisper it. So it might be a few years before they're even worth talking about on those units, right? You could have had them right from the very off. So I think it's really just a case of what kind of DJing do you want to do? How important is utter reliability to you, as opposed to having the new features and just having the need to get a bit techie to keep it all working smoothly and so on? Only you can answer that question, but I wouldn't use the $500 thing as a reason to choose either way. You know, suck it up now, pay the money for the right solution now, and you know, spread that cost in your mind and hopefully on your credit card over that 7 years. And that's the more realistic way, or rather the more sane way of going for it, rather than, you know, the cost thing really shouldn't enter into it if it's something that matters to you, because getting it right is more important. We don't want you upgrading to the other system after 2 years because you made the wrong decision now, do we? So I hope that's helpful, Jack, and do come back and tell us what you buy. So Alfie says, this is a music question. I'm looking for a site where I can buy MP3s instead of just streaming music. I want to get set up to DJ for birthday parties and so on, but I usually play club music, techno and house, right? So we get it, Alfie. You want mainstream music so you can play mainstream gigs. There was a site years ago I used to use that had albums of say 100 soul tracks or 100 rock tracks or whatever. I'm looking for a way of shopping for classic party stuff in bulk and only having to search for single tracks of more specialized stuff to add to that. it would take me far too long to shop for individual rock, pop, indie, and so on. And as far as pop goes, says Alfie, I don't even know half the artists. Even though I was born in 83, I know more about 50s to 2000s than I do onwards from there. So I can't for the life of me remember what that site was called. I can't remember it either. However, I think you're making a few mistakes here in your thinkings, Alfie. So let me gently nudge you in a different direction. Well, firstly, this is the way it's going, right? We get more and more students here at the school saying, I want to start buying music instead of streaming it, right? Streaming is becoming more and more common, but we would argue it is not the right way for a serious DJ to go because of all the limitations which we've talked about elsewhere. But you're right to want to build a local music collection of your own files to play, especially when you're being paid. So that's the first thing. So well done for that, Alfie. But here's why I'd push back on you. Your job as a DJ is not to have a big collection of music that you don't know very well. Your job as a DJ is to have a collection of music that you know inside out and that you can put into any order for any crowd in front of you right now. And so buying in bulk is not the way to go. The best way to approach a mobile DJ collection, which let's face it, does need to be bigger than a collection for a specialist DJ. If you're a house DJ or a techno DJ, you're not taking requests all the time. You don't have to have certain tracks with you because the whole thing's going to fall apart if you don't. Try telling someone at a wedding that you're not going to play their song, even though they're one of the people who got married, and see the reaction you get, right? You've got to have access to all the music. But that's where the streaming services are actually really, really good. Because if you say, okay, what I'm going to do is buy all the music that I know, I love, I want to incorporate into my sets, whether that's mainstream, house, techno, whatever. I'm going to buy that, but I'm going to learn that. And then if there is stuff I need I haven't got, I'm just going to hope that I can get an internet connection and stream it. I think that's the saner way to go. Because otherwise you're packing your DJ library with music you don't know, and that's a no-no. It really is. It's like a carpenter turning up to a job with a toolbox full of tools they've never used before. It doesn't make sense, Alfie. So instead of saying it would take far too long to shop for individual tracks, treat it as an opportunity for you to learn those tracks. So there are lists. For instance, you could go to the streaming services you already use. There's some fantastic playlists of music on there. Or you could go to the websites that list the top 200 wedding DJ tracks of any given year or decade or whatever. They're all out there. So there are plenty of lists you can consult, but only you know the tracks that work. You can go and see what other DJs are playing in these event spaces and make lists of music that they're playing. Obviously, you're going to be Shazamming them, right? Shazam is your friend here, but I'd say if you can add 5, 10, 15 tracks a week, it won't take you long before you've got a big collection. But that few weeks or few months spent building that collection is a far better way of building it than just going and bulk buying or bulk downloading tracks that you don't know. So Alfie, take it bit by bit. It won't take you too long, and it'll be a far better way of doing it than just jumping on board with any big bulk. And even worse, if you go to places which I won't mention here, you see people saying, you know, everything you need to DJ, 5 terabytes for $50. Well, look, I'm not even going to start telling you what's wrong about that. But there was a court case once where a teenager who'd pirated, like, I don't know, let's say 10 terabytes of music, was taken to court by the major labels in the States. And they said, we're gonna sue you for, and they put like a dollar amount on each track. It turned out this teenager owed about 10 billion or something. And obviously no teenager is ever going to pay that. But the judge in the court case threw the whole thing out of court and said, you're saying that the reason you're going to fine, or rather the reason that you're suing this teenager for this amount of money is that they've stolen, you know, the equivalent of 10 billions worth of music from you. But this is a judge talking. In my mind, the fact that they have got a copy of that on a hard drive doesn't mean anything, because in order to steal something, you need to own it. And they don't in any meaningful way own that music, because it would take them 10 lifetimes to listen to it, never mind own it. So, of course, case dismissed. And I liked that because in a way, what it's saying is that you don't own music you haven't listened to, you don't know, you can't use. So from a DJ's point of view, I think that is the way to think about it. You don't really own tracks that you've bought in bulk until you've learned them, figured out how to incorporate them into your sets, and you like them and you've got them organized and so on. Some great comments coming in from our live audience about this. Hayden says, for a wedding event, ask in advance for any particular tracks that they would like you to include in your playlist and make sure that you've got them. And that's a really good idea. And also, actually adding to that, Hayden, for a wedding event, ask for tracks that they don't want you to play. That's another thing. The don't playlist is really important. So thank you for that, Hayden, and thank you for everyone else commenting in there on this and the other topics. I'm going to move on now to a question that came in from Leopold, and this is the one I was mentioning earlier when I said I'm going to refer back to a previous answer. Leopoldo, he says, "Hi Phil, I'm an open format DJ and I've lost count of how many people, hotels, clubs, promoters, party agencies, etc., I've approached. No one has called me. Everyone says, well, we'll take you into account in our next event, but nothing. Could it be that I'm doing something wrong?" So whereas earlier we were talking about having the jitters about pressing go on your DJ career, Leopold has actually pressed go and sent out lots of emails and not really getting any response. All right then. So whether you've sent out emails, whether you've spoken to these people, whether you phoned them, whatever you've done, you're not getting any response. Why not? So this is something we talk about a lot here at the school. And again, it comes from it's an understandable but a fundamental misunderstanding of how it works out there in getting booked land, right? So here is the harsh truth. Here are two harsh truths you need to know about the way DJs get booked. One, the DJs who've already got gigs are the ones who get booked. Two, all those people you mentioned, hotels, clubs, promoters, party agencies, etc., they only book the people they already know and like. So only the DJs who are getting gigs are getting more gigs. And anyway, the gigs are always being given to people that the hotels, clubs, agencies and so on know and like. So unless you are either already playing gigs or you're already known and you are a friend of, has to be a professional friend, doesn't have to be a personal friend, but a friend of the people who can give you the jobs, you're not going to get the gigs. It doesn't work on a, here's my email, here's my CV. It doesn't even work on a, hey, I'm a DJ, have a listen to my mix. It doesn't work on that framework. It's not LinkedIn. It's not corporate world. It's not anything like that. It is path of least resistance. In other words, if you know someone can do the job because you've heard them do it, you are infinitely more likely to book them than someone who approaches you and tells you they can do the job. But secondly, if that person's also a stranger, just turn around and walk out. You ain't getting the gig. And the clubs, hotels, party agencies, promoters and so on, they're just being polite to you, Leopoldo. So you need to do what I was mentioning earlier. You need to play some gigs. How you get those first gigs, I can't tell you. It's going to be difficult. Throw your own parties. That's what I used to do. Throw a party for friends and family. Because as soon as someone hears you playing and says you're doing a good job and you can chat to them about it, you will get other gigs from that. And once you're playing, won't be very regularly at first, but once you're playing just out and about every now and then, it can start to snowball. People get to know who you are. I'll tell you a way it always used to work for me. I'd get booked to play a party by someone who'd booked a venue, right? So for instance, we're here in a very small place. Digital DJ Tips is based in a very strange but lovely little country called Gibraltar. Now Gibraltar has got several, we're surrounded by sea. We're almost an island, right? So we've got several marinas, and in those marinas are the kind of venues you can imagine, right? They've got decks, they've got lounges, they've got restaurants, cafes, Irish pubs, and there's a club and all that stuff. They always want DJs, right? So I was booked to play at one of those venues. I mean, I don't DJ out that much anymore. I'm very picky and choosy. It tends to be for friends. But I was booked to play at one of those venues by a friend who had a birthday party, and they hired the venue and they said, Phil, come and play. I can't remember. I think it was, I want some 80s music or something. No, it was a charity event. That's right. I remember now. And so I got to play there. And then guess what? The venue owner's like, oh, I really like that. Can I have your number? Right. So now the venue owner has not only seen me play, but had a chat with me, decided they like me. Now I've got a venue owner on side, right? That's how it snowballs. But you've got to play in the first place to do it. So don't be surprised that these people are not getting back to you, Leopoldo, because they're just being polite. As Michael says in the live comments, it ain't who you know, it's who knows you. I love that. I really love that. It's brilliant. It ain't who you know, it's who knows you. I'm going to steal that one. So thank you for that. Anyway, Leopoldo, I do wish you the very best of luck in that. And I do hope that you can just get your foot in the door somewhere, because trust me, it will get easier from there on in. So our final question today is from Bernard, who says, I'm looking at getting a DJ system that I can use to DJ, but I also do quizzes and I also do karaoke. Can you please advise? Love from Ireland, and love what you do. Oh, thank you for that. Okay, this is quite easy. Two things here, hardware and software. So if you are also doing quizzes, you probably want at least one, probably two microphones, right? Because you might have a microphone for you, you might have someone helping you, you might be passing a microphone round in order for people to give answers to special questions and stuff. So you're going to need a DJ controller, a DJ unit with two microphone inputs. So you're going to want to check that that is the case. Now, also hardware wise, you might want to have a radio microphone for one of those microphones, right? So just bear that in mind when you're pricing this stuff up. So at least the microphone that is away from you is doesn't need a wire. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the software. Now, of all the big DJ platforms, Rekordbox and Serato being the two biggest ones, but also we've already talked about it once today, Traktor. There's also Algorithm's DJ Pro. There's also Virtual DJ. Virtual DJ is definitely the best one for what you have spoken to me about, because Virtual DJ does two things very well. It lets you plug in a screen to the laptop very easily and then run various things on that screen, including karaoke, right? You can get karaoke files and run that on the screen very, very easily. So as karaoke, there is no better DJ software than Virtual DJ, hands down. But also for quizzes and so on, Virtual DJ's built-in video software is very good. You can prepare slides, you can type text in live and stuff. So overall, if you want to incorporate video and not necessarily like just DJ visuals and stuff, then Virtual DJ is the one, but also the fact that it can run karaoke files and that it is used by a lot of karaoke DJs just makes it an utter no-brainer. Now here's the weird thing, Virtual DJ does not officially work with an awful lot of controllers. Unofficially, it works with them all. So as long as you get a decent, well-known, reasonably modern DJ controller that's got two microphone inputs to work with your software, buy Virtual DJ in order to get all the features. You buy it once and they'll update it for life. As long as you do that, you're going to be good to go. Now, Don has said something in the chat. Don, one of our students who's here with us live, who says, with AI, you don't even need to get special karaoke files now. And that's true. Virtual DJ's AI is very good. It guesses the lyrics very well nowadays on tracks using the wonders of AI. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that route if you're a professional karaoke, because it still gets things wrong, but prove me wrong. You know, maybe have a play with the new lyric AI features. It's certainly uncannily accurate how it gets there, but it is making a few mistakes, which might be embarrassing. So thank you, Don, for that vote for AI karaoke, which means you can of course use the normal files because the AI is figuring out the lyrics without you needing to get the special karaoke ones, but just maybe be a little bit careful with that. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. Thank you so much for everyone who took part in the podcast today and for asking questions. I hope we've helped you, not only our students, but everyone listening as well, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening to the audio version of this, remember it's also on YouTube and vice versa. You can subscribe on all big podcast platforms. If you enjoyed it, we'd love a review and a 5 stars. It does help us to get this far and wide. And if you'd like to learn to DJ with the Digital DJ Tips School, head to digitaldjtips.com. We don't want your money. We just want you to click that button in the top corner and join our community. We'll take it from there. If you like what you see, we'll let you know what's here for you. Meanwhile, from me, Phil, in the studio, get good, get out there, make the moments, and I will see you on another podcast very soon. Bye for now.